This afternoon, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee voted 10-7 to advance a resolution on Syrian intervention to the full Senate. That debate starts Monday. Now, part of the rationale for military action goes back to President Obama's red line comments last August. But today, the president was in Stockholm, Sweden, and tried to distance himself from his own remarks.
I didn't set a red line. The world set a red line. Congress set a red line when it ratified that treaty. My credibility is not on the line. The international community's credibility is on the line. And America and Congress's credibility is on the line.
So what did President Obama actually say in 2012?
A red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized. That would change my calculus. That would change my equation.
I like to call that a communication snafu. Dana, what do you think?
Well, I think that they could try to get away with that and say that it is the world's red line. What I think that would have been better for the president to have said is, instead of being defensive, he could have said, yes, I set a red line because it is the world's red line, and add to it rather than subtract and try to make it like him against the world. He should just say, yes, I'm leading, and that's why we had the red line and we are moving forward, rather than it's just like it's a constant, everybody's so mean to me. But his subordinates for the past year have all been reminding reporters and reminding us over and over again that he is the president of the United States, he's the commander-in-chief, and he's the one who drew the red line. I believe that that is the U.S. policy anyway. I don't think that he needed to be defensive. There is a way to say that, yes, of course, there was a red line, and that's what I'm for.
Yeah, well, the problem is it seems to be never his fault. So now he can turn around and blame it on communication advisors that chose the wrong words for him to say, and that's why he is so horribly misunderstood throughout his presidency, first term, and now still ongoing. Or he could blame it on Bush, which is his next favorite thing to do.
This is really, it's really about language. It's about using jargon, pretending that jargon is actually justice, whether it's talking about the red line or my calculus. Or let me unpack that question. Remember he said that in the beginning? We're a country run by a visiting professor out to impress his pals in Europe. It almost makes you long for the day of the simple language of that yokel president, George W. Bush, who actually said what he was thinking. But can I just make a greater point about this? Everybody says this is not about Syria. They say that it's about Iran. That it's our inaction in Syria that will embolden Iran for a bomb. So why don't we just push fast forward, skip past Syria, pretend we did it, and then just take out Iran's nuclear arms. That way we will get the respect. We will stop the emboldening. We will do all the symbolic work. We'll put Putin back in his place. The fact is, if you have a rotten tooth, you don't yank out a different tooth. You yank out the rotten tooth.
That happens sometimes.
It does, but isn't that what it's? We're talking about Iran. We're not talking about Syria. Right?
Well, we're talking about Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, maybe Russia. I mean, clearly we're talking about a lot of things.
China,
UN. It's one of the things the president said, and it was not artfully done the way he did it in Stockholm, but what he was referring to was a treaty that was ratified by the United States Senate several decades ago, and the world signatories to that did not include Syria, by the way, because they were not there then. Is where the red line was drawn. It said that we will not allow the use of chemical weapons. This was shortly after the First World War, when mustard gas was used and thousands and thousands of soldiers died.
Well, can I just say something? I don't know who this guy is. I heard President Obama in Stockholm today say some things that I was just absolutely shocked. I'm driving and I listened and I stopped and wrote them down. What do you mean you didn't draw the red line? You absolutely did draw the red line. We've always had the international community's red line, but you're the one who brought America into it by saying we will act if you do what you say you're good, what we worry about you doing, and they did. President Obama, you brought America into the red line discussion. That's why people are talking on the Senate floor. I have to do this.
Okay.
What is that? Is that ketchup?
We should be very selective on how and when we shed blood, ours or theirs. American patriots shed blood to protect our families, our country, our way of life, but there's no reason to shed blood, ours or theirs, for a civil war between two radical Muslim groups who frankly hate us. So we should be very careful before we shed any more blood, ours or theirs. This is not our war, people. We need to stay out of the Middle East.
Eric.
Where did you get that stuff from?
It's ketchup.
It's ketchup.
You get it from
Don't try
John
and eat
Kerry?
it off his hand.
It's at the Code Pink store.
Look, if somebody would have, at some point, would have brought up the fact that we were signatories to a treaty, and that treaty compels us to take action on something like this.
Well, somebody could make the argument that we actually already have blood on our hands by not acting up to now. That if the red line was just on chemical weapons, I mean, what have we done to 120,000 people died up until then? But also, I go back to 6 months ago when the inspectors first went in. That's when they think that they first used chemical weapons against their own people. And there wasn't the groundwork laid in the Congress. That's why they're having to do this. It did just pass. The resolution did just pass in the committee 10-7. So it's on its way to the Senate.
But why is it our blood? Why is it our turn? Why is it always us that has to go in and shed the blood, their blood, our blood, whose ever blood? We spend the money.
I think it's the burden we have to bear for being the leader of the free world. If we want to keep that position. I do.
We're also
Maybe
the only
we don't.
ones.
Maybe it's time to say, you know what? Let China step up. They're outproducing us in everything.
I'm
They're
not
outproducing
comfortable
us in
living in a
everything.
world
Will
like
China step up and care about
China
other people?
would veto any resolution in the UN Security
Your
Council. By the way,
favorite
can
country.
somebody bring Eric some napkins so he can get the stuff out
Baby
of his
wipes.
hand?
You know what? I think the issue here
Is that Carl's
for-
Jr. moment?
is whether or not we actually have the authority to do anything anymore, given the fact that Obama has made it clear that we were no longer exceptional and we were no longer the authority or the policeman to do that. In fact, it was distasteful to flex muscles. How can you flex your muscles when you hate the idea of it? We've been wrong on 3 major foreign policy issues. On Iran during the Green Movement, we let that die. Egypt, we supported the Muslim Brotherhood. Libya, we blame Benghazi on a video. The only security issue that Obama has been really good at is that he wears a helmet when he rides a bike. But other than that, it's hard to trust them on these things. Can't we just let them war each other out? You know, take away the penalties and the flags. The game doesn't last as long. It doesn't. You know, let it end on its own. We jump in. We turn that game into a doubleheader.
How in the world can we possibly? First of all, the answer to your question is why is it us? We're the only ones with the capability to take out their capability to deliver.
Please, Bob, please, you said that yesterday, and
it's true.
Let it go, but that is the most asinine comment. You're a great guy and a smart guy, but that is an asinine comment.
Why do you say that?
Israel could do it. There are a lot of countries that can do it. Germany can do it.
No, Germany can't do it.
There are countries
Germany
that
does
can
not have the capability to do it.
To deliver 200
Angela
Tomahawk
Merkel
missiles,
isn't
are you out of your
going
mind?
to
They
do
can
it.
do it overnight.
It's also against our Constitution.
Come on,
Yeah,
guys.
and she also said no to
Okay,
that.
so you know what?
It
It's
is
against our
against our
Constitution, too. Congress has to
Really?
declare war. President Obama saying we're going to go in with 200 Tomahawk missiles is a joke. That's war.
First of all, you don't know it's 200 Tomahawk missiles. Secondly,
Right.
Germany cannot, by its own constitution, go to war. France is with us, and they can.
All right.
And they'd be willing to launch.
France is not with us yet.
Let's
France is
take a
not with us
listen. Let's take a listen
England can do it.
to
There's a bunch of
Secretary
countries
Kerry
that do it.
and Ralph Peters, who was on Hannity last night, because we're talking about does boots on the ground equal blood from the troops. Take a listen.
Let's shut that door now as tight as we can. There will not be American boots on the ground with respect to the Civil War.
If you think you're going to secure those vast stockpiles of chemical weapons in Syria with a handful of special operations A teams and a couple Ranger companies, you're talking Little Bighorn scenario. Boots on the ground are definitely part of our future if we get into this.
It's realistic assessment.
It's not realistic at all. It's ridiculous. It's from a guy who probably should have not got the rank that he got.
Why do you say that? Why do you have to attack somebody
Why is it
personally because they
disparage?
disagree with you?
Because what he said here was not accurate. We're not trying to take out the stockpiles of chemical weapons. We're trying to take out the ability of them to deliver chemical weapons.
All right. Well, let's look at it this
Right.
way. Our enemies, Al Qaeda, have used chemical weapons in the past. They've used chlorine. They've tested sarin nerve agents on dogs. They are the enemies of Syria. So what we're doing is we're actually emboldening people that use chemical weapons by going after Syria. The fact is we don't know for a fact who did it. So why are we getting involved?
And let me just point something else out, big boy. If we do take out their delivery methods,
Who's the
which you
big
said,
boy?
Bob,
Oh, Bob.
missiles. You're saying that we should take out their missile facilities, right?
No,
they can deliver chemical weapons via munitions. They can do it through dirty bombs. They can lay it. There are so many ways they can deliver it. If you go ahead and do what you're going to do, spend $1 billion or two doing this, and then the next day Assad delivers it another way. Where are we?
Excuse me. What they were looking at was gas, sarin gas, at least the UN inspectors, in an area that was bombed. It was not brought in by a dirty bomb. It was by missiles.
Well, we don't
And
know
that's-
that for sure, Bob.
Well, let's assume.
It's amazing how you have more intel than anything the American people have heard so far.
Let's assume
does
that
have connections.
they do have information. And when you guys say we don't know yet, let's assume there's a very compelling case by tomorrow that gets out or leaks out of the Congress or leaks out of the White House that says, in fact, we do know that they did that.
Somebody's
Now, if
forecasting a leak.
If that's the case,
They've leaked
would
everything
you,
else.
or would you not
Pretty
be in
much.
favor of taking this guy?
Yes, if we know for a fact that they did it, then I think that we have a compelling case. The
Why?
fact is,
On humanitarian grounds?
yes, but
what
you're
about
looking-
U.S.
you're-
interests?
Yeah, you're looking at. I think that we have an obligation if they are killing thousands of people. Then I think that we have a stronger case to do it, and it's a better
Right.
debate. But you're looking at two groups here. You're looking at one group who throws acid in girls' faces for going to school. You have another group, an authoritarian regime that tries to keep these freaks in place. Which side is more likely to use gas? Really?
Both.
What?
Well, I think
Both.
the crazy
And
radical.
that's the point.
I think the radical crazy Islamists are more
you
likely.
live with the
I'm going to get
Islamic-
Dana back
Hold on.
in.
Which group is the radical crazy Islamist? I
one-
would contend both are.
Well, I'm not sure that Assad goes after
I'm trying.
Christians the way radical Islamists do.
Well, then why are we taking him out?
That's my point.
Dana.
Right.
Dana.
I'm agreeing with
If you look at if you read somebody who's actually been on the ground there for 2 years, she's a journalist named Elizabeth Obeji. She wrote in the Wall Street Journal on Saturday, and I'm not saying I know for sure. I'm just taking it from somebody who's been on the ground about the Al Qaeda influence being quite contained and limited, and that if you look at just the refugee camps, which about 2 million now people displaced outside of Syria, they didn't leave because they wanted to be a part of the government. They didn't because they were being attacked by their own government, and they don't want to join the rebel forces. They don't want to fight. So I think that there are people who are willing to get out of the harm's way, go to a refugee camp where basically there's sewage running through, and the United Nations is doing the best that they can, but they expected 200 to 300 people a day. They're getting 2,000 to 3,000 people a day. So I do think that there are people that we could find, but I guess this does go back to something you said about America being an exceptional nation and whether or not the administration believes that. I think this is reminding us that the United States is just different. And it's better. And the fact that we can actually have a full-throated debate and a discussion, and you can have a senator who is basically live tweeting his decisions to vote for it, vote against it, vote for it because it gets his amendments, I think that shows our strength rather than our weakness, and that we should lead with it.
Could I make one other point? Where they bombed us in Damascus was where the Free Syrian Army was making headway against the Syrian army. Now, they were not Islamists. They were not. There's no indication whatsoever that any of these Islamist groups were in that neighborhood when this was going on. And secondly, do you believe the Free Syrian Army is going to bomb themselves?
I don't,
Yes.
No, I
The
think
Free
that
Syrian Army, they're not. They're secular.
Bob,
They're secular.
It's a war tactic. Bomb your own people, make it to
By the way, I don't know who
the United
would.
States on your side. I don't either, and I'm not suggesting they did. I'm simply saying,
Okay.
until we know, why are we going to kill people? Why are we going to spend money,
What is it
treasure
going to take
lives
for you to
until we know
at
for
what
sure?
level of certainty do you need to have?
110%.
All right.
Well, that's
Hey,
never gonna
you
get.
you'd love to scream about WMDs.
All right, we're going to
How's
leave it
this
at that.
different?
Ahead on the 5, lots more. Right? Can't we just all get along? Probably not. Should partisanship and polls play a role for members of Congress who are deciding about whether to support a strike on Syria? We're going to debate it. And an important programming note. Tune in.